Hello and welcome to Experiencing Love. I'm your host, Philip Jocks, and I'm so glad that you're here. I have a few things to update you on. Yesterday, I mentioned the idea of doing my 8 critical tasks list. I create a list in the morning of 8 things that I want to do that day, and the goal is to get them done by the end of the day, by the time I go to bed. The goal is to get them done and then build up a streak of how many days in a row can I do 8 critical tasks. Eventually what happens is I run out of the easy stuff to do, and I have to start getting really creative about what can be a critical task for that day. So the first few days are going to be easy because it's all the to-dos that I've been putting off. Eventually, it's going to get a little bit more fun, a little bit more exciting, and a little bit more automatic. So the update is that I started this today, and in starting to record this episode a little bit earlier than I normally do, honestly, by about 5 minutes really, I completed my final task for the day. I get to cross it off my list, and one thing I like to do is sign my name at the bottom of the page. I get to sign it as recognition that I've completed the day. And already, just doing this, I found that I was much more proactive with how my day went. I wouldn't say I was completely productive, but I will say I was more deliberate about the choices I was making. I spent the first half of my day actually doing a lot because I wanted to make sure to have enough time to finish everything by the end of the day. Pretty much, it had me looking at my entire day differently. Rather than letting it happen to me, I was making the day happen. Or as I like to believe, my life happens by design, not by default. I was designing my life today, and it's something I want to keep doing. I want to reach that point where I'm struggling to come up with my critical tasks. It's something I feel pride in when I reach that point. So that's that. I started recording only 5 minutes earlier than I usually do, but that counts. I did find my previous notebooks from the first time that I did these 8 critical tasks. It was exactly where I left them, and I was able to flip through them to get some ideas of how I wanted to do this. In the first book I ever made, I found in the back were a list of rules I made for myself. And maybe they weren't so much rules as much as they were guidelines to ensure success. Among the rules listed, there was a couple like make them extremely bite-sized and manageable, and careful writing down items on your list that rely on other people. By those 2 things, I mean make them small action steps that can be the start or the trigger to a larger goal. So instead of saying finish the project, you can say spend 5 minutes working on the project. Who knows? Those 5 minutes can lead to 5 hours where you do finish, or it's just 5 minutes for that day and you're able to get one small thing done, which is still progress, yet you're not weighed down by this massive goal that you can't accomplish for one reason or another. The second part was not to rely on other people, in that I've made the mistake before of writing down goals to create certain plans or do certain things with someone else, and then that person needs to cancel for one reason or another. In my eyes, that's still a failure on my part because I wrote it down on my list that I wanted to get this done, and it doesn't get done. It doesn't happen on that day. I may have a really good reason, but with a little bit of planning ahead of time, and even that planning and foresight of not even putting it on the list would have meant I would have succeeded in that day. I guess this was the start when I was first trying this out. I guess this is almost 4 or 5 years ago now, of the power of language and how the words you use matter. The specific words I used in my tasks were the deciding factor many times of whether or not I finished a goal or not. Whether I made the goal smart by making it specific and measurable and attainable, or just extremely vague and more emotional even, like saying I want to feel happy today. Technically, yes, I can do that, I can achieve it, but how do I measure that? How do I know if I hit happiness? That might not be the best example, but I hope you get the point, that you want to be smart about the way you do these tasks, because this isn't meant to be some willy-nilly emotional diary. I see this more as a system of getting things done, and it's rooted in fact and logic. I have no doubt, though, that if you get the idea of how to morph this into something that works for you, that doing so is worth it. I don't claim to have come up with the idea of 8 critical tasks. In fact, I got the inspiration from other sources as well, and I made it my own. So if you're hearing this, or if this idea is falling into your lap, and it needs an adjustment, then I really do encourage you to do that, because that adjustment could be the missing piece for someone else. And in sharing that change that you made, you give them permission to grow and to do something like this, something they've never done before. So I'm really happy about the way today went. I'm feeling pleased. I'm thrilled that I'm stepping up and taking action once again. It's been a rough few weeks, and it hasn't been rough because of anything happening externally. I've really just been battling myself in my own mind. Sometimes I could be my own best friend, and sometimes I could really be my worst enemy. I have hopes now that in reintroducing this little notebook as a kickstart to my productivity, that I'll be able to do a lot of the creative projects that I have that I've put on the back burner. I have a lot of these projects that I've been excited to do, and I've had a lot of fun coming up with and brainstorming. Yet I put up these barriers that I now need to overcome before I could continue making progress. And it's funny because those barriers were created and put up by me. In theory, I should just as easily be able to take down those barriers as I can in just putting them up. Honestly, that's true. I can just tear them down. But I think that's similar to treating a symptom and not the problem. There's something causing me to put up these barriers, something rooted in fear. And so if I just ignore these barriers, in a way that's me ignoring what the deeper cause, the deeper problem is. Instead, I rather ask why I'm putting up these barriers and deal with that problem first. Because I have no doubt that the problem in question is affecting more than just my creative endeavors and their progress. I think in part it has to do with not feeling worthy of being able to really create and put my heart out there. There's still a lot that I want to do, but I hold back in doing because I don't feel like I'm allowed to. And the one to give me permission is myself, and it has to do with low self-worth. One of these projects that I want to do is to complete my book. I've always wanted to write a book. I never knew what about, but I've known that one day I wanted to see my name on the cover of a book. Not because I want to see my name there, but because I want to become the person that's capable of writing a book. Or I guess I should say, I want to become the person who has written a book. Because writing a book is no easy feat. It's true that anybody could just write a bunch of words, fill a bunch of pages, and then post a cover on it and put it out there. Honestly, that's probably what most people do. Most authors, really. I saw some crazy statistic that it was either 95,000 or 195,000 books a year that get written don't sell more than 5,000 copies. It's something like no more than 5% of books ever written actually grow and become successful, whatever that means. And that's a crazy statistic to me. Shows a lot about that person, that author, and the work that they create. It takes one type of person to write a book, and then it takes the next level of that person to write a great book. So I'm in this camp that I want to just write that first book that may be great, or it's just the foundation for a greater book later. And I bring that up because one of the things that gets in my way is wondering if I'm worthy of writing a great book. Do I have something to say? Do people want to hear or read what's going on in my mind? Because I don't know the answer to that question, I just keep going one step at a time so that I could find out. If I'm lucky, people will stumble upon my work and will give me constructive criticism on how to improve. Because doing something great the first time is cool, but it's also damaging because you haven't learned what not to do. If you're great the first time, much of it could be luck, and you may not know which parts are really the thing that makes your work stick out. So I would be lucky if someone would give me advice on how to grow, and not just the type of advice that's general, but the type of advice that shows they've consumed that version of my work, and they believe in the possibility that I could do better. I think there's definitely a difference between the advice you'd get from one or the other. So I'm currently overcoming challenges with my self-worth. Self-worth is internal. It doesn't come from the outside world or from any work that we do. It's purely based off of who we're becoming. As much as I do things that may contribute to my self-confidence, which is more external, it's not as common for someone to really tackle the issue of their own self-worth. This concept of self-worth versus self-confidence comes from the book Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima. I picked it up years ago, and I'm rereading it now, or at least rereading parts of it, because sometimes I just need that reminder of worth. In my mind, this episode wasn't exactly clear or concise, and I'm grateful that you bear with me through these types of episodes. I'm always learning, and I appreciate all advice if you have any. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being who you are. Remember to always fill up with the love, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I love you.